The word supercar has never really meant anything. It's closer to an emotion than any kind of specific word, definition, or number, and in the late 1980s, supercar meant two things: Ferrari and Lamborghini. Testarossa, 328, Countach, even the Jalpa. Sure, the Countach was a neck-breaker. It looked like nothing else, but it drove like a tractor. Its windows didn't open. You couldn't see out of it. And as an owner, you knew every truck driver within 100 miles by name. You baked them cookies for Christmas. What I'm saying is, they never ran. Ferraris weren't much better. Their 328 took muscle and clenched teeth just to shift into gear. No power steering. Weird pedal placement. It wasn't a car you drove every day. Supercars, for pretty much their entire existence up until 1990, were fast first, stylish second, and reliable. Well, let's just say the Italians don't have a word for that. That all changed in 1990 when the smallest, cutest, most humble car company absolutely broke the definition of supercar, a new standard of performance cars. Reliable, practical, affordable, all while being fast enough to leave that Lambo in the rearview mirror. A car that let every Italian manufacturer know that they were lazy, uninspired, and asleep at the wheel in 1990. The word itself had a new meaning. This was the NSX, the Japanese sports car that broke supercars. We make it simple. Rewind. It's 1983. Honda, back then, was just a plucky little economy car brand. CRX, Prelude, Civic, front-wheel drive cars meant to be as reliable, cheap, and efficient as humanly possible, while still being just fun enough to not put the driver to sleep. But behind the boring city car brand was actually a team of dedicated racing engineers conquering Formula 2 in the early 80s. They had an engine that won in 81, 83, and 84. They just needed a car to show the world what they were capable of. But what the hell does Honda know of designing fancy mid-engined supercars? Well, nothing really. They hadn't even made a proper sports car yet. They had no experience making midship cars, not even an inkling of how to start. So late one night, or at least assume it's late at night, and supported by a few cans of Sapporo, Honda engineers started tinkering with engine placements and drive types. Up till now, they only made front-engined, front-wheel drive cars. So they took a Honda City, yes, Honda City, one of the least sporty cars ever, and slapped an engine in the back and took it for a spin around the parking lot. The engineers were immediately blown away. The handling of this weird Frankenstein Econobox was actually tight, dynamic, and exciting. Honda's team was ecstatic. They had tasted what it was like to build something special. Seriously, the NSX you know and love today owes everything to bored engineers and a Honda City. It's pretty wild. Meanwhile, Honda Corporate was prepping the Acura brand for U.S. Americans. They needed a halo car, something to show the Yanks that they came to win, that this wasn't just another Honda. Honestly, 1980s Honda was out of their freaking minds. They could have taken one of their cars, made it rear-wheel drive, got a team of engineers to make a tuning division, and released a pretty decent little sports car. But they said, "Fuck it. The clapped-out Honda City in the parking lot is our muse. We're building a freaking supercar. We don't want to beat Nissan. Forget BMW and Mercedes. We want to take down Ferrari, not just another Honda." The project lead, Shigeru Uehara, was given a task that many would deem impossible. He was told to create a car that could outperform the Ferrari 328, but to do it in a Honda. Honda had never made a supercar. They were known for reliable, mass-market, and affordable vehicles, but this was something completely new, a radical departure from what they were accustomed to. Uehara and his team were undeterred. They didn't aim to just create another sports car. They sought to redefine the very concept of what a sports car could be. Honda didn't make difficult cars. They made cars that were reliable, respectable, and easy to drive, and the same philosophy should apply to their sports cars. But what made Honda unique wasn't just their practicality. It was their obsession with making things work. The Honda supercar should be able to spend a day at a racetrack and still drive home in one piece. That wasn't a luxury car. It wasn't a car for people who just wanted a fancy badge. It was a car that could be practical, reliable, and fast, something that you could use every day without worrying about it breaking down the moment you push it hard. You should be able to park it on the street, see out of it, survive an accident in it. It had to be real. A real, usable supercar. What a revolutionary concept. In the 1980s, this kind of thinking was almost unheard of. Supercars until then were about raw power, cutting-edge design, and little thought for practicality. They were built for a very specific, very rich customer base, people who didn't have to worry about daily usability. They were built for showing off, not for real driving. But Honda's vision for the NSX may seem tame now. In 1985, it was considered an incredibly bold and revolutionary idea. They set out to change the world of sports cars, not with flamboyance, but with intelligence. Uehara and his team weren't focused on creating something to compete with Ferrari's stunning aesthetic or Lamborghini's extravagant displays of wealth. They were focused on creating something that would be better than everything else, a car that was both a work of art and a tool for everyday life. This wasn't a decision based on style or image. It was based on a vision of a real-world supercar that worked on every level: performance, durability, reliability, and usability. Honda wanted a car that could race with the best, but also drive home without breaking down or leaving you stranded. The NSX needed to be a car that worked for everyone, not just a select few. Graph paper. To bring this vision to life, Honda's engineers needed to break the rules of supercar design. Uehara and his team plotted out every competitive sports car on a graph, comparing power to weight and vehicle weight to wheelbase. And oddly, the competition all fit into sort of a band on the graph that they ended up calling the Milky Way. The best cars, Ferraris, Lamborghinis, Porsches, were all clustered together in a tight band, all with similar proportions and weights. But then, the team plotted the current Formula One car. There it stood, way out there. It wasn't just faster than any supercar, it was optimized. The balance between power, weight, and dimensions was unparalleled. It was the standard. They now had their target. The NSX would push as close as it could to this Formula One balance, blending the power, weight, and performance of the most advanced racing technology into a street car. This was an incredibly ambitious goal. Not only would the NSX have to match the performance of the best sports cars of the time, but it would have to come close to the precision of a Formula One car, something no one had ever attempted before. Honda didn't just want to compete. They wanted to push the boundaries and create a new standard. To do that, they needed to rethink everything. The NSX had to stand out, but not because it was flashy or outlandish. It needed to stand out because it was better, more refined, more balanced, and more usable than any other car on the market. The Japanese way of innovation. The way Honda approached the NSX was fundamentally different from how the Italians, Germans, or Americans made their supercars. In their design philosophy, it wasn't about throwing more horsepower or bigger engines at the problem. Honda didn't see car development as an exercise in excess. They weren't trying to create the fastest car, they were trying to create the best car. To achieve this, they had to be clever. They weren't just solving engineering problems, they were thinking about how to optimize every aspect of the car, from the materials used to the design of its components. Their goal was to find elegant solutions to problems that other manufacturers might have thrown more money at. This approach led them to challenge every preconception about supercars. The goal wasn't just speed, it wasn't just beauty, it was a holistic approach to making the best possible driving experience for the average consumer. In other words, the NSX had to be the perfect balance of everything, and Honda was committed to getting every detail right. Graph paper. Uehara and his team plotted out every competitive sports car on a graph, comparing power to weight and vehicle weight to wheelbase. And oddly, the competition all fit into sort of a band on the graph that they ended up calling the Milky Way. Then they plotted the current Formula One car. There it stood, way out there. They had their target. The NSX would push as close as it could to the Formula One balance of power, weight, and dimensions. and thus, it would go beyond what every other sports car and supercar of the time was doing. It would stand alone. Now, to create a car like no one else had before, Honda needed to do what no one else had done before. Look, if you know Honda, they don't solve things the American or Italian way. Just throw more horsepower or cylinders at it until it's fast. So they had to be clever, and the task they set for themselves was not an easy one. They struggled to balance the car's weight and power. Transpiration. As Honda engineers worked tirelessly on refining the NSX, they were constantly seeking innovative solutions to the challenges they faced. One crucial breakthrough came from a seemingly unrelated source, the bullet trains of Japan. During their travels between Honda's R&D centers, the engineers were spending a lot of time riding these high-speed trains. And as they sat in the sleek aluminum trains, gliding through Japan's landscape at incredible speeds, a thought occurred to them. Why not apply the same lightweight, high-strength aluminum used in the bullet trains to the car's structure? This was a true moment of epiphany. Up until that point, no one had made an all-aluminum monocoque production car. Most manufacturers were still using heavy steel frames for the car's chassis, which weighed the car down and hindered its performance. But the lightweight aluminum used in the bullet trains offered an entirely new possibility. As they reflected on their travels, the engineers realized that aluminum was the perfect material to bring the NSX's vision to life. Not only was it incredibly strong, but it was also lightweight, precisely what the car needed to maintain a perfect balance of power and weight. It was the missing piece of the puzzle. Honda's engineers were absolutely inspired by the bullet trains. They realized that just as these trains could glide effortlessly across the tracks, the NSX needed to glide effortlessly on the road, light, agile, and powerful. They dubbed this moment of inspiration their trainspiration. The decision to use aluminum had far-reaching consequences. It shaved off 200 pounds from the car's total weight, and more importantly, it revolutionized the use of aluminum in the entire automotive industry. This wasn't just about making the NSX lighter, it was about changing the way cars were built, forever. Honda's commitment to using aluminum wasn't just an engineering choice, it was a philosophical shift in how to build a car. Where other manufacturers might have added more power or more cylinders to create a faster car, Honda focused on making the car lighter, more efficient, and better balanced. And this approach wasn't just smart, it was revolutionary. The secret ingredient. The use of aluminum allowed Honda to achieve something that no one else had managed to do before: create a car that combined low weight with high strength without sacrificing safety or performance. The result was an all-aluminum monocoque chassis, a feat that no other manufacturer had even considered for a production car. This decision marked the moment when Honda's trainspiration became more than just a clever design choice. It became the defining feature of the NSX, setting it apart from the rest of the sports car world. The aluminum chassis allowed the NSX to be incredibly responsive, agile, and light on its feet, qualities that are essential for any supercar. But more than that, Honda's use of aluminum broke new ground for the entire automotive industry. After the NSX, other car manufacturers began to adopt aluminum in their own designs, pushing the limits of what was possible in car construction. Honda didn't just make a great car, they changed the industry. The all-aluminum advantage. One of the most remarkable aspects of the NSX's aluminum chassis is that it was not just light, but it was also incredibly strong. This balance between weight and strength is what made the NSX so remarkable. While other manufacturers were still using steel, which is heavier and harder to work with, Honda's aluminum chassis offered a combination of strength and lightness that made the NSX a force to be reckoned with. By using aluminum, Honda achieved a level of refinement and performance that was previously unimaginable. The lightweight nature of the chassis improved the car's handling, making it more responsive and agile, a true sports car. And with the weight reduction, the NSX became faster, more efficient, and more practical than any supercar that came before it. Breaking through conventional thinking. The all-aluminum monocoque chassis was not the only revolutionary choice Honda made in the NSX's development. The decision to embrace innovation in every area of the car's design, from the VTEC engine to the suspension system, showed that Honda wasn't just trying to build a car to compete with Ferrari and Lamborghini. They were trying to build a better car, a car that would change the way people thought about performance and reliability, and they succeeded, revolutionizing the supercar world. Honda's use of aluminum, combined with their commitment to performance, reliability, and precision, resulted in a car that wasn't just good for its time. It was ahead of its time. The NSX became a benchmark for the supercar world. It was a car that could go toe-to-toe with the likes of Ferrari, Porsche, and Lamborghini, and do it with grace, reliability, and precision. The engineers' bold decision to use aluminum was just one piece of the puzzle, but it played a crucial role in making the NSX the supercar that would forever change the industry. And that trainspiration, the idea that innovation could come from the most unexpected places, was the heart of Honda's success. It was proof that sometimes the greatest breakthroughs come when you dare to think differently, and this is where Honda almost drops the ball completely. As the engineers worked tirelessly on refining the NSX, everything was starting to fall into place. The chassis was designed, the suspension was optimized, and the car was lighter and more agile than anyone had imagined. But as they approached the final stages of development, Honda made one of the most unexpected missteps in the car's journey. You see, once they had the chassis designed and all the key components worked out, the team went ahead and made a critical mistake. They decided to put a single-cam engine in the car, one that came from the Honda Accord. Yes, the same engine found in a mid-range sedan. At first, the NSX was going to be powered by this parts bin engine, a solution that was practical and easy to implement. After all, it was cheap, reliable, and readily available, attributes that Honda was known for. But the problem was glaring. A supercar, a car meant to take on Ferrari, Lamborghini, and Porsche, was going to be powered by the same engine that powered a humble family sedan. This, in hindsight, was an incredibly risky move. While Honda had created an automotive masterpiece in terms of engineering and design, the decision to stick a vanilla engine in the NSX was nothing short of an identity crisis. The NSX needed more than just a chassis that was light and agile. It needed a powerful engine to match the car's handling and precision. It needed something that could compete with the world's best, an engine that sings. As the NSX neared its public debut at the 1989 Chicago Auto Show, the reality set in. The car was beautiful, it was finely tuned, and it was ready to make its debut. But when they checked under the hood, they realized something was missing. The soul of the NSX. The team had settled for the single-cam engine out of the Accord, a solid engine, but one that was far too mundane for the high-performance machine Honda was trying to build. This wasn't just a misstep, it was almost a catastrophic mistake. Honda had poured countless hours into creating a chassis that would change the automotive industry, but they were about to ruin it all with an underwhelming engine. The NSX was supposed to be a car that would outperform the best in the world, not just compete. This was the moment when Honda had to decide whether they would rise to the occasion or fall short of their ambition. The wake-up call. It was at this point in the backstage of the Chicago Auto Show that the president of Honda, Tadashi Kumi, became the catalyst for the NSX's true potential. Kumi, eager to present Honda's flagship supercar to the world, revved up the prototype and immediately realized the engine didn't have Honda's new VTEC technology. Kumi's reaction was swift, decisive, and filled with the kind of passion that only a leader fully committed to a groundbreaking vision could demonstrate. He turned to his engineers and demanded, "You idiots! This is unacceptable!" Or perhaps he said something along those lines. Kumi understood that if they wanted to win against the likes of Ferrari and Lamborghini, the NSX needed a soul of its own, something that would make it truly unforgettable. The VTEC revolution. Kumei's insistence on change was the turning point. The engineers quickly set to work, knowing they had to give the NSX something extraordinary. Honda had developed VTEC, a revolutionary system that adjusted the camshaft timing in real time, optimizing the engine's performance. It had been used in their four-cylinder engines before, but never in a six-cylinder. Kume's demand was simple. The NSX had to have a VTEC engine, a six-cylinder VTEC engine that would blow the competition away. The engineers set to work, scrambling to make it happen. And what emerged from this last-minute scramble was nothing short of a masterpiece. The C30 engine was born, a 3-liter dual-cam V6 that would become Honda's finest creation up until that point. It was the second engine ever to receive the VTEC system, and more importantly, it was the first time the American market would ever experience the VTEC kick. This new engine not only gave the NSX the power it needed to rival Ferrari's best, but it also gave the car a personality, a soul. The VTEC system allowed the NSX to rev up to an 8,000 RPM redline, unleashing its power in a way that no one had expected from Honda. The engine also included titanium connecting rods, making it one of the most durable and high-performing engines of its time. The NSX's engine was now a work of art, efficient, powerful, and incredibly refined. It saved the car from becoming just another bland supercar with a powerful chassis but a weak engine. Thank God they did. This was the turning point for the NSX. What had almost been a disaster turned into the heart and soul of the car. With its newly developed VTEC engine, the NSX could now accelerate to 60 miles per hour in under 6 seconds. Impressive for a car that was designed to be as easy to drive as a Civic. The engine gave the NSX the performance it needed to stand shoulder to shoulder with the greatest supercars in the world. The new engine, combined with the lightweight aluminum chassis, made the NSX an incredibly balanced supercar. It wasn't just about brute strength, it was about control and precision. The NSX was now a car that could handle both the racetrack and the street, a car that was reliable, practical, and still fast enough to rival Ferrari's finest. A near miss. The decision to put the Accord's engine in the NSX could have been Honda's biggest mistake, but instead it became the moment that defined the car. If they had stuck with the original engine, the NSX might have faded into history as just another sports car. Instead, thanks to Kumei's vision, it became a world-beating supercar, one that changed the game forever. Honda's commitment to creating a car that was both practical and fast set the NSX apart from anything else on the market. But it was the VTEC engine, the one Honda engineers had to scramble to develop at the last minute, that saved the car from mediocrity and turned it into a legend. Without that engine, the NSX might have been remembered as a well-engineered car. But with it, the NSX became a car that changed the supercar world forever. So it's set to debut at the 1989 Chicago Auto Show, and the president of Honda, Tadashi Kumei, gets ready to show the world Honda's new prototype flagship supercar. There's already some other brand making a presentation on stage, and Kumei just fires up the prototype backstage like a badass. The crowd is stunned and intrigued at what Honda has behind the curtain, but Kumei himself is flabbergasted. Revving up the NSX prototype, he realizes the car doesn't have Honda's new revolutionary VTEC system, so he presses his engineers, who tell him that VTEC is only planned for four-cylinder applications. He screams at them, "You idiots! This is unacceptable!" Or maybe he said something like that. Kumei forces the NSX team to develop an entirely new 6-cylinder VTEC engine. And thank God he did, because the new C30 engine was Honda's best yet, a 3-liter dual-cam V6. The second Honda engine ever to receive the VTEC technology and the first time the American audience would ever feel VTEC kick in. It was a revolution. It saved the NSX from becoming the Japanese DeLorean. It propelled the NSX from just being a pretty face to a full-on world-beating supercar, unlocking potential. The NSX prototype spent an entire month at Suzuka Circuit, getting pushed to its absolute limits by fate. The famed Formula One legend, Ayrton Senna, was in Japan to test out a McLaren, which was powered by a Honda. And look, he ain't no idiot. When the guy who makes your racing engine asks you to come by the racetrack and do a couple of laps in the new supercar, you oblige. After a full month of refining the NSX at Suzuka, the engineers were confident they'd wow Senna with how the NSX carved an apex. Senna eats a biscuit, drinks a coffee, does a few laps, gets out of the car, scratches his head, and tells them, "It's a bit fragile." The engineers were stunned. The car was good, but not perfect. The NSX went back under the knife again and emerged months later, 50% stiffer. Honda even employed a Cray supercomputer to perfect the aluminum suspension design. This was maximum effort from Honda. There were no corners cut, and now, because of it, the NSX was a taut, sharp supercar, ready to compete on the world stage, all thanks to the legend, Ayrton Senna, a bullet train, and a supercomputer. With the car properly sorted, with 400 patents filed, an entirely new way of making a production car pioneered, it was time for the world to see what the nerds at Honda had been making in secret.